Welcome to Design Speaks. We're here to empower you to unlock your inspiration so you can take control of your creativity. I'm your host, Brandi C. Joining me is my co-host, Julie Hyder. This week, we're going to be talking about goal setting, vision casting, fancy words for hopefully getting things done. So stay tuned for that coming up later in the show. Hi, Julie.
Hey, Brandi.
How's it going?
Good.
It's been a little
excited
while.
to start the year out.
Oh, man. Let's just say that, this is our new year. Forget January, February. We'll just start the new year every year in March when we start the podcast. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
So I want to ask you what you've been up to, but first I want to say that I have been terrible at planning, and for the last 5 years, I've bought the same planner. So I use this planner from Ink and Volt, and it's really great, and I really love it because it asks you all these questions for goal setting for the year, and it talks about setting up individual weekly goals and all this stuff. And so normally I have this routine where I go through and I sit down and I think about all the things I want to get done for the year, which is insane, by the way. We can talk about that more later. But this huge long list of things I want to get done for the year. And this year, I haven't done it. I haven't even thought about the whole year, and I just haven't really been able to approach them the way I usually do, and I'm not entirely sure why. But I always have a word for the year, so I have my goals and a word, and so I have a word for the year. But beyond that, everything seems a little bit hazy. And so today we're going to be talking about goal setting and vision casting, and I don't even really know what that means. So we're going to talk more about that. But I think I need this episode. It's a really good time. It's already almost a third of the way through the year, and I still haven't quite got my things down. So this is going to be very helpful for me, and I hope that it is for other people too. But first, what have you been working on? What's new in your life these days?
Yeah. Well, along the lines of plans, and in this case, plans not going as you expected. So Valentine's Day was a little bit ago now, but I think I said in last season we bought a Jeep, and so we've been trying to get it out and go do stuff as much as we can. And the weather had been 65 during the day, and we were okay, for Valentine's Day, it's on a Sunday this year, let's go do something super fun. Let's go off-roading, and then we'll take a fun little picnic and do that. We woke up on Valentine's Day morning to 6 inches of snow.
Yeah, right?
So
everywhere.
And I think the high for the day was 21 or something like that. It was chilly.
Not
way
romantic
too chilly for
hiking weather?
No, not picnic weather by any means. But we were man, we still want to do this. So we actually drove up into the mountains where it was even snowier. And we just got new tires on the Jeep. So I think my husband wanted to go try them out, really.
Sweetie, it'll be really romantic. Really, yeah. I just want to check if these tires work.
Yeah. But yeah, we went up there and we just parked in what was once a parking lot before everything was covered in snow and all looked the same. And we spread out the picnic blanket in the back of the Jeep with the seats folded down, and we had a little charcuterie board picnic back
gosh.
There. It was really fun. So I brought some little string lights and we attached them to the roll bar in the Jeep. And I brought some hot tea because it was 5 degrees.
How many layers were you wearing?
Just regular clothes. I did
what?
kind of...
Are you nuts?
Yeah. I did kind of regret, at one point I was I should bring a blanket for us to put over our legs, and then I forgot. And so by the time we ended our picnic, I took the picnic blanket and put it over my legs and cuddled up under it because it was chilly. But it was just really fun to get out and do something different. And even though our plans didn't end up being what we meant for them to be, they were still really fun and memorable. So.
What a cool story. Yeah. Valentine's here was, we spent it with our kids, and Kenny made a really amazing, Valentine's is my favorite holiday. So like it's a big deal. It's as big as Christmas. Like we have the full, like we set up a table for the kids with like presents for them to open, and like
That's
it's like a whole thing. So that makes me so happy that you like really went out for Valentine's, because you don't always need to like book a restaurant and have wine, and like I feel like it suits you perfectly. It's like the you version of your elopement thing. It's like, you don't need the fancy stuff. Look at us.
Yeah, totally. We're both quality time love language people, and so it just we tried the whole go out to a restaurant thing once, and it wasn't really that great of an experience, and so we were like, no, we'll do things our own way. So.
I love it. I love it so much. That's amazing.
Yes. What has been inspiring you lately?
Okay, so this was a hard one to choose because it's been 3 months since we recorded last, and while I share a lot of stuff on Instagram, there's literally like never enough places or ways for me to share all the things that are inspiring for me. I would just like probably overwhelm everybody if I shared every single time I have something inspiring. So this one was hard for me, but I think, are you still like no Disney person? Like basically, you haven't watched anything?
Disney, I'm just not.
You don't have Disney Plus?
It.
Okay.
I do have Disney Plus, but only because of The Mandalorian.
Okay, so your homework, should you choose to accept it, your mission, is to watch the thing that inspired me. I like binged this with Caden, my son, the Inside Pixar documentary. So stinking good. So it was definitely created to like be an inspiring thing. So like it's not surprising, like most things I find inspiring aren't inspiring to most people. I feel like anyone watching this would be like, man, that was so cool. That was so inspiring. It basically like goes behind the scenes and they interview illustrators, writers, directors of a lot of like the Pixar films, especially some of the newer ones. But the thing that really stuck out to me that was like really inspiring was that no matter how like successful you are in the creative business, so like some would say that becoming an illustrator or a designer, a creator in some way at Pixar is like the epitome, right? Like when kids learn to draw, they're like, I want to work at Disney. And when people think about going into animation, it's almost always like, I want to work at Pixar, I want to work at Disney. Yeah. And the percentage of people that get to actually do that are like very slim. Very small. So it was really cool to see that even though those people are kind of like at the tippy top of what people would see as a successful creative, like that they still experience like self-doubt and like this feeling of the thing that I talk about all the time that I like push when I am talking about selling my course and sharing my process, that like fear that people have of the blank page. I was just like, just kept like being blown away by the fact that like these creatives at this level are saying the same things that I hear my students say. Like, I don't know where I get my ideas. Like, I feel stuck. Where do I find inspiration? And it was just like, on some level, I think we know this, that like everybody experiences that feeling of being stuck. But I think sometimes when you see people working in places like that, you just kind of go like, no way, man, those people are creative all the time. And so the thing that was really inspiring to me was, one, it was like validating that what I'm sharing and what I'm teaching is something people need. Because sometimes universal. My self-doubt goes like, I don't know, do people care about getting unstuck? Do they want to learn a process that will help them? Like, does this even matter? And then I watched something like this, and this was in like dead in the center of when I was creating my course on the design process that I do, was like, okay, no, people need this. Like, this is something people need. So it was inspiring. It was motivating. I would really love to go deep into this. So I think I'm planning on doing an episode later in this season on kind of, preliminary title would be for sneak peek for all of you right now is like the things that you and I have in common with the creatives at Pixar. And so I think that it's going to be really fun, but that was like really, it was just really valuable and really inspiring to me. I didn't like go create anything because of it, but it was just something I think that I needed. And I think that if you need some encouragement, you need to go watch that film, those films. They're short. They're like 15-ish minutes each, and there's only like 4 or 5 of them, but they're amazing. 100% of designers have felt stuck staring at the blank page. You, your coworkers, your competition, even creatives at Pixar get stuck and feel uninspired. Designers, it is literally our job to be creative and stay inspired all the time. I get it. I've been there. I've been stuck, feeling overwhelmed and full of self-doubt as a creative, staring at a blank page and wondering if I'll ever have a good idea again. I'm Brandi C. I've been a designer for over 20 years, and I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way, and the process is the key. For the past decade, I've used this process to earn design awards and create my best work. But more importantly, I've helped other designers win awards and create their best work. I want to guide you through the process that's going to help you the next time you feel creative block, the next time you're stuck staring at that blank page, hitting your head on your desk. I'm going to show you how it works, how to use it, how to incorporate your own voice so you can finally make the work that's going to get you noticed for creating like you. The Strategic Process Essentials course launches in late February. Visit brandic.com/courses to sign up, or if you find me on Instagram, you can send me a message and I will help you find it. I can't wait to guide you through this process, to help you take control of your creativity, get past creative block, and create work that gets noticed. Okay, so I want to share some music with you. I played it for Julie earlier, and she's like, where do I know this from? And if you follow me on Instagram, you can go be like a detective and figure out why this song might sound familiar to you. So this week, my song is Colorful by Jukebox the Ghost. And this song is like kind of simple lyrically, but it felt like a really good song for coming back from a break. Like every single lyric pretty much of this song is really uplifting and like appropriate to the time for a new year, for being optimistic. And even though like 2021 still feels kind of like 2020, it's very like just empowering to have like a lot of optimism. So I don't know them by heart, so I'm just going to read a couple of these lyrics. So basically it says, hey, we're just getting started. Take your fears and let them go. For the lovers and the brokenhearted, take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful, and want to feel like a light in a dark place, another color in a world of black and white. So as you all know, I love color, and I love color with black and white. So like on a funky level, that sort of resonated with me, but more so like we can be a light, we can be joy in other people's lives, like add something to the world that makes it more colorful, that doesn't take away, is like, I think something that we all need to remember, especially when things are crazy, especially when things are hard. And so this song was sort of like the epitome of that mindset of going into this year of like, we can be color in a dark place, we can be light in a dark place. And I think that's something that we can all take away from that. So that was my little like super deep insight into like a not super deep song. So, all right, Julie, let's talk about goals and vision. And we had kind of hummed and hawed over like, should we even talk about like vision casting, like, or should this just be sort of like goal oriented? And I think that there's sort of a happy medium. So I think that I would love to hear from you, just because it might be the thing that people don't quite know. Let's talk about vision casting first, and then we can kind of talk about like how goals play into that. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Cool. So vision, I know that I've heard of vision casting. I've probably watched or listened to something about vision casting. I feel like we might have talked about this with Tuesdays Together at some point.
Yeah.
I slept since then. So tell me, what is vision casting? Is that a fancy word for something else?
I think like in my mind, it means knowing what your vision is, whether that's like, you know, your life goals, like what you want your future to be, basically, or something for the year or month or whatever the period of time is, but just like a vision that you have for your future self. And kind of
like how far in the future,
figuring out what those are. Yeah. Figuring out what those are, and then like specifically, you know, writing them out or whatever, so that you're casting that vision out there.
Like a
and
net
then
when you're
I would
fishing?
Yeah, I would say step 2 is like figuring out how you're going to get there too, which I don't know if that bleeds over into goal setting or what. I don't know. I'm not a vision casting expert, but in my mind, that's what it is.
Yeah. So I think that something that I've been thinking about lately is something that we talked about in a Tuesdays Together a little bit ago, was like creating a visual goal board. So like for me, when someone says a vision like that, and it may just be because I'm a visual person, a visual creator, when I hear vision, I think of something visual, not just like this this pie in the sky, like really like my vision. I like my eyes went white and I saw something like miraculous in my future. So I've heard about this idea about the visual goal board. And I've been thinking about like how to create that. But I think what I'd like to explore a little bit more with you is like, how do you decide, first of all, like how far ahead you set your vision for, and what things qualify as like the vision and what things qualify as the goals. So there will be some bleed over, but I think that it's important for us to sort of explore and explain the difference and how they kind of work together. So how has that looked for you?
Well, this is very timely for me because this year I kind of went big on like vision and goals and stuff like that, bigger than I've ever done before.
And I've done nothing, which is less than I've ever done before.
Yeah. So we're balancing each other out here. Yeah. So a couple of things have kind of played a role into how I've done it this year. First was I looked back at like partway through December, I looked back at what my goals for 2020 were. And obviously like we all have to give each other or give ourselves a little bit of grace because it was a strange year. But I realized I achieved some of the goals, but didn't realize that I had achieved them until I looked back at my list. And then I also realized that I had some goals that I absolutely could have achieved if I had remembered that I actually set them.
Ah, yes. Been there. Been like, that wasn't that hard. Why didn't I do that?
Yeah. One of them I was like, if I just had like a couple more weeks in the year, I could have done that. But I totally forgot. Like I wrote these things down and I never looked at them again. And so that was my downfall with that.
May I ask what that was? What one of those actually was?
Yeah, that one specifically was to be published 3 times. I was published twice. I literally had the third one to go. But like I was looking at this like right before Christmas, so it was just I was like, it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
Like I would really have to scramble to make it happen. Right. So it was just so silly. Like the only reason I didn't achieve that is because I didn't remember that I made it a specific goal.
Yeah. So what did you change then if you got like super motivated at the beginning of this year to help that situation?
Yeah. So a couple of things that I did, and I worked with a friend. We set goals together over a Zoom call. So it was a little bit of accountability there too, which is great. There were certain things that I put dates on. So one of them, for instance, is to start an email marketing list by the end of February, which I am down to the wire on because we are recording this at the end of February. So that is something that I will achieve today or tomorrow.
That you want to do.
Yes. So putting that date on there made it so that I couldn't really just keep pushing it back and being like, oh, well, other things came up. Like that's a goal that's really important to me. So I am going to do it and I'm going to do it by this date. And then the other thing is just what I've started doing is every Monday morning, I start out the day by writing in a little journal I think I have like 5 business goals and 5 personal goals, and I write those out. And if I have achieved any of them, which there are a couple that I have, I still write them out. And then I like put a check mark next to them or something like that to just like,
be same like, hey, 5 every Monday.
What's that?
The same 5 every Monday?
Yeah. Okay. So every week I'm writing down those 10 goals, the 5 business, 5 personal, so that I can't forget them. If I'm writing them out every week for 52 weeks, like I will remember what my goals are. And so that's just a great reminder. It's a great way to also keep track. Like, so one of my personal goals that's really big this year is reading 52 books.
Ooh, well,
yeah, I know. I've never made like
that's a book a week?
Yes, that's a book a week.
Dang.
I've never made a book goal before. And so for some reason, I decided a book a week was a good one to do for the first time ever.
I set book goals virtually every year and rarely hit them because I'm always overambitious with my time.
Yeah, I think I'm being a little overambitious, but I'm going to try to do it. We'll see what happens. But so in that journal, I'm also keeping track of like where I'm at with those goals, like which ones I've already hit. And then also like with that, it's a measurable thing. I could say like this week I have 5 out of 52 done or 10 out of 52 or whatever. So, so those are some things that I'm doing to actually make it happen. And then the third thing is that I will be making a vision board. I kind of have an idea of how I want to do it. I haven't actually done it yet.
Yeah.
But that is something that I want to be able to like visually see that every day to remind me, not just of like the goals, but why I made each goal. That was something that when my friend and I were making those goals together is we wrote down, you know, okay, so I want to read 52 books this year, but like why? Why is that important to me? Why did I make that a goal? And by writing that down, it helps me stay motivated. And if I'm looking at that on a regular basis, it's just going to keep me on track. And like, you know, when there's the heart to it, it's beyond.
It starts
just like,
with why, right? Simon Sinek. It all starts with why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I guess, is a vision board, do you think, the same as a visual goal board?
I guess it would depend on how you put things on there. Like, I know some people like to put very specific stuff, and then some people like to put, like, you know, a picture of a tropical beach because they want to, whatever that means to them, you know, either like go on vacation or make 6 figures so that you can lay on a beach. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think people do those differently. Everybody has their own way.
I think the thing that's been holding me back at this point on like doing all of this is I think because last year was so wacky, it kind of like, even though it shouldn't, it sort of threw a wrench into my thinking about goals because I had set some really big, lofty goals for last year. And half of them, more than half of them, didn't get anywhere, primarily because of the pandemic. Like I wanted to travel to speak, and I was already booked out to speak 3 times before June last year traveling, which would have been like half of my goal. But then everything got canceled. And so there's just like this, it's almost like there's this apprehension for setting goals because I don't know what life looks like right now. It's like, well, I want to book an X number of like speaking sessions maybe. And so that's going to be now over Zoom, which is fine. But is that really what I want? I don't know. Like I want to travel to speak. Like I want to do in-person workshops, but is it realistic to even have that as a goal? So it's just like, I'm like stuck on this precipice of like the goals I actually truly really want and the things that I might have to compromise on that don't end up being as fulfilling, but that sort of will eventually need to be in place in order to do that. So it's like, I need to keep speaking over Zoom so that I can speak in person when the pandemic is over. So I'm just like, I'm realizing that it's not just like excuses, like, I just don't know what goals. It's sort of just like being realistic and going, okay, but why am I not wanting to put these goals out there? Because I'm afraid that it'll just end up a big waste of my time to spend all this time vision casting and vision boarding and all this stuff. And then it's just like, that goes in the garbage because I can't do any of this. So how did you sort of, since you have done all this and I have yet to do all of this, like, how did you look towards your goals in light of like the limbo that we are all living in March of 2021?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question because some of the goals that I didn't hit last year were because of the pandemic, you know, like it wasn't going to happen because of that. Yeah. So one of the things that I also did at the end of last year was to just kind of write out like a bunch of things that I'd like to do at some point in my life. Like I'm not putting a time on
like
them
your bucket
or
list,
even saying like that I want to do them right now or anything, but just like someday I would like to do this.
Right.
Like one of them is to go to all 50 states, and I'm like 40 something in, but like that's not going to happen this year. And I know that, and that's okay. But I still have that written down, and like I've thought it through of like, this is something that I would like to do one day. So it's still out there. It's still like, it's not like I pushed it back and I'm never going to think of it again kind of a thing. So I wrote all those out. I think it was like 75 different things that I came up with. So it was like a really big list. And some of them, like, it's not going to happen even in the next 10 years, but just like one day I would like to do
this is your bucket list.
Yeah, basically a bucket list. And then I kind of went through and looked at what are the things that are like that feel more pressing, that are more important to me, that I really want to achieve sooner. And then also, just looking at it realistically, like I do have a lot of travel related stuff personally, and I didn't put those on my goals this year because I don't know if it's going to happen. Now, if the opportunity arises, then like,
I have that written
down. Yeah. It's still out there. It's still in my brain and everything, but I'm not necessarily like actively working towards it because I know. Now, I do think though, you know, eventually this will all be over. I don't know when, but eventually. So I do think like, you know, if you want to save up money for a trip now, even if you don't know when it's going to happen, that's still like a goal you can work towards. Or if you still want to like be speaking now so that eventually you can travel to speak, like then you're still working towards that goal even though you don't know when it's going to happen. So even though you don't have like a date for it, if it's important to you, you can still work towards it in whatever way that you can. But I do totally understand being realistic with stuff too. It's a strange time.
It is a weird time. So I think the thing that I've been gravitating towards lately is, and this is kind of where we're going to get into maybe more of like the actual like ideas of how to do this is, so having the visual goal board of, I think a mix between like a little bit abstract because of the time we're living in and some things that are a little bit more specific. So I did achieve one of my biggest goals from last year, just this year, because I had planned on putting together the course based on some things that I was hoping to do in the real world outside of Zoom last year. So when I couldn't do that, I kind of had to push off the course until I could actually just create all that content in my office. And so I did do that. And I've been thinking about having more of my goals and my vision for the year being around the kind of person I want to be instead of just the super specific things that I want to achieve. And I think that there's going to be like a balance between like the somewhat abstract and could this happen? Maybe, maybe not. And the specific, okay, so if the kind of person I want to be is inspiring and motivating and empowering for creatives, then how I do that can look differently depending on how the year looks. So right now that looks like creating reels and videos and interacting more over, digital means with people and coaching digitally and speaking digitally and all that stuff. But that same sort of thing that I want, the kind of person I want to be once all these things have lifted and I have my vaccine and all that stuff is in place, can then look like doing a lot of things differently, but still with that same like goal of the person that I want to be. So I think that's also like a bigger thing though, right? It's a little bit harder to sit back and go, what kind of person do I want to be is a lot more difficult than like, how many like speaking gigs do I want to book? Like that's pretty like logical, like hard numbers. So I think that, I'm literally working this out with you live on this podcast, like figuring out that I think the reason I haven't been able to fill out any of these things or make my visual board and all this stuff is because I've been focused too much on like the things that I may not achieve as opposed to looking at things that I might be able to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I want to say, like, you don't have to stick to these goals. Like, it might feel a little weird changing them, but like if partway through the year you're like, yeah, this isn't like taking me where I want it to go, or something else comes up that you're like, okay, this is actually going to be a way better goal for me in this area. Like, I do think it's okay to change it and reposition where you're headed and everything, because sometimes stuff like this does come up where you're like, well, that's, you know, either it's not going to happen and I have no control over that, or just making some adjustments. That's totally fine.
Yeah. You make a good point too. Yeah, for sure. And I was thinking too about the idea of yearly goals, and like maybe this is part of like the benefit to doing what you're doing where you like write them down every day, but sort of in relation to that, to have quarterly goals or something instead. It feels a little bit less like daunting, and you can kind of look quarter by quarter and do that. Say, is this still serving me? Like, is this goal, you know, now that I've done X, Y, or Z, or now that this much time has passed, or I've looked into this thing I thought I wanted and I don't want anymore, you won't feel so guilty about changing up your goals, your big, lofty 1 year goals. If you decide that, like, logically, realistically, I can only read 21 books this year after March, and you go, okay, I'm going to switch it up. And then it's not like you reach the end of the year and you only read 20 books and then you feel terrible because you're a big fat failure. So I think that that's another thing that I'm going to be implementing this year that I've not done before, is doing the like shorter, like look at my goals and seeing like, I'm just going to set goals for these 3 months. And I have actually done that. So I knew that I needed my course to launch by like mid-February, which it did. I knew that I needed to start recording these episodes and get things planned out for this season before the end of March, which we are well on our way to doing. And so it's like, I feel like having those like yearly goals, just for me at this point, especially after a year like last year, just feels like too much to have a whole year of a thing that I don't know what this year is going to look like. Not that we ever really do, but more so.
True. Yeah. And also something you said made me think, like, it all comes back to why. Like, if I get to April and I'm like, yeah, 52 books is like not reasonable for me right now.
Yeah.
I can look back at why I set that goal. It's not because I want to brag that I read a book a week.
Are you sure? Because I want to make sure. It would be for me. Just a little.
I should have never said anything. My goal, the reason for my goal was because I wanted to make sure that I was regularly taking time to rest and reset for myself. And if reading is not going to achieve that, like if it's going to stress me out,
right, if it's going to turn into another one of your stressors,
then I can make adjustments. So I think that's why it's so important to know the reason you're setting these goals, is because sometimes you may need to look at the reason behind it and make an adjustment of what you made that goal.
Yeah, so maybe as you are setting these goals, and maybe it's not trying to like figure out the kind of person you want to be, maybe that doesn't appeal to you, but maybe if you are setting like a goal, like I want to write 500 words a day or something, and you write that down, right next to it or right underneath it, why? I want to blank because, not just the goal as like a cold to-do item, because then that's all it's going to feel like is a cold to-do item. And I think that that's another pitfall that I've had over all of my years of setting goals, is always just, for better or worse, probably just like, I want to save space because I have a lot of things to write. So I have to write all the things as small and as bullet pointy as possible, as opposed to like really digging in and saying, I want to write 500 words a day, because it all starts with writing. And when you write, you have content for a blog, you have content for a video, you have content for a post. And like knowing that the foundation of that is something, as opposed to just, I want to write 500 or just write 500 words a day is just like, yeah, I don't really feel like doing that today.
Except, that's going to get you excited too.
Yeah, knowing you're wise. So something that I do on like more of a personal side that I wanted to kind of bring up, that we talked a little bit and that people seem to really resonate with for our Tuesdays together, and I think it was January, was the fact that I do a to-do and a to-da list.
Yeah, I love that.
I used to do it every day. I try to do it every day, but I just have a simple legal pad, and I slice it into, not slice literally, like I put a marker down the middle and write to do on one side and to da on the other side. So in the morning, I will write down on the left side, and this, like, it's a mix of personal and professional, but I sort of have like my ink and Volt journal for my professional weekly stuff. And this one is just more like, what are all like the mind dump, like things that I have in my brain that I know I need to, have to, should do, and want to do. And I list all of those on the left side. So that could be literally everything from like vacuuming, picking up the socks, doing the dishes, or like homeschooling the kids, stuff like that. And so on the right side, as I'm doing things throughout the day, I write what I did. So if on the left side, my first to-do item is vacuum, and on the right side, I haven't vacuumed, but I look over and I see, okay, but I made breakfast, I got the kids ready, I homeschooled them. And so that list goes on throughout the day. So I mark down all the things I did. I wrote a blog post, or I posted to Instagram, I made a reel, like the things that I'm actually doing, so that if by the end of the day, like some of these things on the left side, and some days all of the things on the left side didn't get done, I can go, okay, but what did I do? I did a lot that I actually didn't have on my official to-do list. And so that's my ta-da side. It's like, okay, you didn't do this, but ta-da, you did a lot of stuff. Like you still did
it's not
things.
like you had an empty day.
Right. And so, but that's how a lot of times I think that we go into our days, our weeks, our years, is just with the to-do side. And we don't ever think about all the things that like sort of kept us from doing those things, but that were all also important or equally important to do, like the life stuff that you don't feel accomplished doing necessarily, like laundry and washing the dog and like all the things that you kind of need to do, but that takes away time from those goals. You still have to like celebrate that you are getting things done.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important. I'm very bad at celebrating the thing. I'm just like, move on to the next thing.
And cool, that's done. Now what else?
Yeah. One last thing I was going to say about goal making is specifically writing down how you're going to get to that goal. So if it's something like reading books, how you get to that goal is you read books. It's pretty self-explanatory. Right. But like, for instance, I'm going to be really vulnerable. I made a really big financial goal for this year that honestly seems kind of unachievable, but I'm going to try for it. So I want to make 6 figures this year.
Wow.
And it feels really crazy, but I'm working towards it. But that is absolutely not going to happen if I just hope that it happens.
Right.
I'm not going to come anywhere close. If I do things exactly the same as I did last year, which were still good things and still like moved me forward, but I will not reach that goal if I continue as I am. So I wrote out extremely detailed how I'm going to make that happen. And I broke it down into like, where's my revenue going to come from, which for me is primarily through elopements. So I set a number that I would like to make that's going to come from that. And then I broke it down into like, how am I going to make that happen? So some of that is, getting more website views. Some of that is getting more inquiries. Some of that is, having a better experience for the people that I'm working with. And then I broke those down into just all kinds of different steps that I can take. Like, what are all the different ways that I can get more leads? That is a huge list. And that's basically my to-do list for the year, is to, since that's like pretty much my biggest goal work wise is to work on those things. I'm just going through little by little, and every day I'm working on something. So, and some of that,
amazing.
like I just,
No,
I've
going.
been working on my website and like redoing the text to share more of my brand and its vision and everything. That has taken a long time, like several weeks.
It does.
But I'm finally done, and so I feel really great about that. So now I know like when I'm making new blog posts for people to find me through, and doing all these different things, email marketing and Facebook ads and stuff like that, they're going to come to a place that is going to serve them better. So it's more likely that those are going to turn into leads. So it's a lot. If I, like, when I first looked at it, it was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do all this year? But I'm incredibly, like, surprised and thankful at how much I've already achieved in just basically 2 months into the year, because I have that list there, and I also have somebody who I'm working through that list with who has also made a large goal like that, and we're just going through and meeting almost every single day to work on those things, and that has just been like a total game changer. And honestly, now I'm like, yeah, I think I can actually do this, whereas at the beginning of the year I was like, how will I ever do this?
Right.
Like, how could I possibly achieve that? So having a realistic plan and then actually doing the things on that list is super important.
Yeah, it's right in line with everything we talk about here. It's like having a plan, having a process, having steps that you take, because you don't just like design, you don't just jump from client meeting to like the magic design button where it's all finished. Like you can't have a dream without doing the work to achieve it. Like, this is the real world. There are no magic wands. And like Gary Vee always says, like, it's head in the clouds, feet in the dirt. It's like, you should have your dreams, but you've also got to be grounded and understand that you've got to be down digging in the dirt, like making things happen also. And it is not one or the other, because, and I think that is something I resonate really highly with as an Enneagram 3 wing 4, because Enneagram 3s are very goal, like focus, like get this thing done for whatever reason. But Enneagram 4s are super like emo, dreamy, like artist, like to the max, and writing poetry and just, being like Romeo and Juliet, where he's just like on the, just writing things because they're pretty about Rosalind. And I think that the benefit to being that kind of personality is that I understand that the dreams are really important, because they are what drive you. They are the why, but then you do need the how. So this feels like it somehow like wrapped itself up really nicely. I wrote down that like the 3 things for setting goals and visions are the what, why, and how. You need to know what your goals and dreams are, what kind of person you want to be, and then understand why you want those things for yourself, and then set up a plan, the how, and what you need to make that happen. Because whether that's an accountability person, like someone who's going to sit alongside you and be like, hey, Julie, did you call this person today? Because you said you were going to call this person today. Or if you're really good at just like Julie, writing things down every day so that you don't forget about it, or making a pretty vision board. I'm not a scrapbooker. That's probably my other thing about this, is just like, I have a weird aversion to like being seen as like a scrapbooking mom. So I'm just like, do I really want to put together a vision board? It feels an awful lot like scrapbooking. But knowing whatever it is,
a way to design it like so that it's pretty, because I don't like that like scrapbooky, like it looks like a kid put together a poster board of stuff.
like,
and I'm
like I did that when I was 12. No. Yeah. So maybe you and I can chat offline about what this actually looks like. But yeah, so I think if you don't have anything else to add, I think that those 3 things, like, to really wrap it up, and we've given you a lot of like things to think about and practical ways, but ultimately you need to know what your goals are, why those goals are your goals, and set up some sort of, it doesn't have to be a 6-figure goal like Julie's. It could be as easy as setting up a business Instagram account separate from your personal, or, something that is achievable for you and doable, and understanding why is going to go a very long way. So I guess in short, goals are important, and how you set them and work towards them depends largely on you and how you approach things. But I hope this episode really gave you some like hope that these things can happen. Like whatever your goals are, the important thing is to like give yourself the best opportunity to help make them happen. So, all right. Well, that's our episode for today. If you would, please leave us a review. 5 stars on iTunes is always amazing. You can leave us a note at Design Speaks Podcast on Instagram. Check out all our show notes and links on designspeakspodcast.com. Design Speaks is produced by Kenneth Niffen and Dakota Cook. Shout out to Colin from Vespertine for our theme music. This podcast is a project by me, Brandi C., and is recorded in the shadow of the watermelon pink Sandia Mountains near Albuquerque, New Mexico. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Until next time.